One of my favorite things about the first few days following a Zelda news drop is the sheer drive and passion for making discoveries and finding hidden secrets. Everyone is collectively playing detective and sharing their findings on places like Twitter, Discord, Reddit and other platforms, and of course right here in the YouTube comments. More and more pieces of the puzzle are being added by the minute as people discuss ideas and compare their findings. So today let's have some fun and cover 5 of such discoveries, details which I find significant and could easily be missed by those who aren't scrutinizing the footage or keep a close eye on social media every second of every day. Oh, and by the way, I've already decided on a more focused subject for a bigger video, and I'm happy to announce that it'll be a collaboration with the man himself, Sir Zeltic, and will go up sometime in the middle of next week, so I hope you look forward to that. Until then, grab your magnifying glass and let's dive into 5 discoveries found in The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. If you played Breath of the Wild, which I'm sure most if not all of you watching my videos have, you'll no doubt remember discovering those huge mazes. They were one of the more notable and exciting secret locations in the game, and there's been a lot of mystery surrounding their origin and the original purpose for their construction. And well, it seems that in Tears of the Kingdom these mysterious megalithic structures will be taking off into the sky. Yes, those giant floating cubes we've seen in some of the shots are almost certainly the Labyrinths. So far we've been able to nail down 2 of them with a high degree of certainty. The northern labyrinth found in the top right corner of Hebra, and the southern labyrinth in the bottom right corner of the highlands that wrap around the Gerudo Desert. We can see it most clearly in this sequence. Here's the cube, and if you draw a line straight down to this protruding cliffside, this is where the northern maze should be, but as you can see, it's no longer there. We can find a different floating cube in this shot, and once again, if you follow the line back down to the surface, it matches exactly with the original location of the southern maze, which is normally tucked away in this part of the mountains. No doubt I won't be the first to point this out in a video. In fact, I totally missed it in my initial analysis. But one thing I haven't seen a lot of people talk about so far is that in this shot, the northern maze is still present on the surface. You can clearly see it still standing right there. It is easy to miss because there's a different revelation in this shot which kinda overshadows it. That of course being the equally mysterious Typhlo ruins, which is now devoid of the black fog that covered it in the previous title. The fact that the northern maze is still on ground level here is significant on many different levels. First of all, it's the only case so far of a landmark we know from Breath of the Wild that has taken to the skies, which is not the case with the other islands and buildings we've seen in the sky so far, as they are all new and unfamiliar. Secondly, the fact that the maze is on the ground in one shot and then floating in another suggests that Link or someone else may have done something to cause it to lift up into the heavens, triggered some kind of event or completed some sort of task or challenge inside the maze, or maybe under the surface below it, sending it up into the clouds. It's also apparent that the labyrinths are much bigger than we initially thought they were, given the fact that they are shaped like a cube. They seem to extend much further into the earth, and the part of it we saw in the previous game was maybe only the top third or even fourth of the entire structure. That said, there was one hint to this reality in Breath of the Wild. Lome Labyrinth Island, situated in the Arkala province, had an extensive basement level, which did show that it was much bigger than we were able to visually see from the outside. However, the other 2 didn't feature a sub-level of this size, and so their actual size wasn't as clear. Until now, that is. The mysterious case of the floating labyrinths also presents the real possibility that perhaps other structures we know and love could also lift up into the skies at some point. Places like the Great Plateau, which also had a big secret hidden under its surface in the form of the final trial. Or Hyrule Castle, which has massive tunnels and chasms deep below its foundation. So far the plateau and castle have still remained close to the surface, but who knows, they might take off through a similar process that caused the labyrinths to take flight, especially the castle, seeing it's already suspended in the air to begin with. It could also be that only structures associated with the Zonai are eligible for a trip to the sky. After all, there are clear hints and connections between this ancient tribe and both the Sky Realm and the Underground. Like I said, so far the labyrinths are the only case of known landmarks originating from the surface that are now floating above Hyrule, and they just so happen to be associated with the Zonai. This next one is a bit more subtle and maybe insignificant, but you know those new towers we've been able to spot all across Hyrule? Well, not only are there a lot of them and close to places of interest, but they also seem to exert similar behavior as the original Shika Towers. In most of the nighttime shots, we can see 4 bright spotlights at their base, which are pointing upwards, making them stand out from afar, just like the original Shika Towers did. Furthermore, in most cases, the towers themselves are seen glowing orange. However, in other shots, there are distant objects which look to be the very same towers, this this time with a blue color instead of orange. I'm quite certain that these are the same towers. In fact, this one next to the dueling peaks might be the very same one we see here in this shot, just from a different vantage point. Of course, blue and orange immediately calls back to the Shika, whose technology, like the shrines and towers, glow orange when dormant and blue when activated. But these towers are clearly not the same ones from Breath of the Wild. Their locations don't match. I mean, there wasn't a Shika Tower on top of Mount Lanayru. They also don't seem to glow during the daytime, which, if true, is also unlike the Shika Towers. And yet the colors, orange and blue, do at least suggest a Shika connection as opposed to the other new technology, most of which have a green glow instead. My running theory right now is that they are crude, more basic versions of the Shika Towers. In some shots they look like they might be made of wood or some other basic materials, like an old school medieval watchtower. I definitely don't think they rose from the ground like the original Shika Towers did, because in some shots you can see a gap at their base, which to me suggests that they are standing on feet or a tripod or something. Perhaps because the original towers retracted back into the ground, and with no way to get them to rise back up again, the current day Shika improvised and built crude replacements for them, which would have happened somewhere between the ending of Breath of the Wild and the beginning of Tears of the Kingdom. It's arguable if anything from Age of Calamity should be considered canon or not, since it's a spin-off, but here we did see the Shika recreating technology that mimics those from their distant ancestors. Case in point being these small portable furnaces which mimic the much larger ancient furnaces from 10,000 years ago. By now we've all seen those strange looking green spirals coiling around some sort of rock or spire. They're all over the place in many different shots, usually tucked away far in the background. Many are speculating that these might be this game's equivalent of fast travel points, just like the shrines and towers did. It's worth mentioning that so far all of these spirals are found on the surface, and we have yet to see a single one on the islands in the sky. So either they are limited to letting you fast travel to locations on the surface only, and getting to the islands will require different methods, or they serve as a connection between a point on the surface and in the sky. I did mention in my video about the new mechanic where Link phases through ceilings that the description inside the patents say that in some cases this jump can be performed with virtually no height limit. So maybe when Link stands on top or close to one of these spirals, he'll be able to soar upwards rapidly to a designated island. It would explain why none of these spirals are found on the islands themselves. Perhaps the only way to activate these warp points on the surface is from the skies above, after which Link will have established quick access to a specific island so he can get back there more quickly in the future. Maybe that's what some of these weird buildings are for, as some of them do seem to have a sort of altar which could be used to activate these fast travel points down below. And yes, it's almost certain that these spirals do need to be activated and are not there by default, because in the shot where Link is riding his horse across Hyrule Field, we can see one of these spires or rocks this green coiling energy emanates from, yet here the spiral is absent. And in fact, I'm quite certain that this location is the very same one we see in one of the earlier nighttime shots. You can even see the same pools of malice right beside it, and here the spiral is present, which hints that this shot takes place after it's been activated and this one before Link has done so. So this is a short one because I don't really have a whole lot to say or theorize about it, but did you know that there's additional footage we didn't see in the original trailer? People have been able to dig up some sort of compilation video, I think from one of the Japanese websites, which features extended versions of some of the trailer sequences. Most notable are this shot, which wasn't even in the trailer at all, this one where Link is driving the car, which lasts a good few seconds longer and reveals more of the surrounding landscape on the left and right side, and the shot where he's riding that new flying machine, which shows a second floating sphere in addition to this one, also not visible in the original footage. The Great Plateau shows up a couple of times in the new footage, most notably this close-up shot, and there's a few where it's also visible in the distance. But it makes another appearance, and here it reveals a pretty important detail. This part of the plateau, which faces the desert, is normally covered in snow. But as you can see, not only is the snow gone, but there's trees and vegetation growing here now, which is very strange. However, I do think I have a plausible explanation for it. And no, it's not time travel. So remember how after the 2021 teaser, a lot of people were pointing out out that the sun's location seems to be different. The main gist of it is that it's in a point in the sky it never reached before, because of the way the day and night cycle worked in Breath of the Wild. Normally the sun would travel like this. It never reaches south of the latitude of Hyrule Castle. It always passes by its northern side, but in the teaser footage the sun was clearly located a lot more to the south, and in fact we see the same thing again in the new footage, so this hasn't been changed since. In other words, shadows in Breath of the Wild will never reach the angles we saw in the teaser footage. You can test this yourself. As was to be expected, this would ignite a debate regarding the possibilities of time travel. After all, why else would the sun change position like this so drastically, unless it takes place in a different age or something? However, I and some others proposed a different explanation at the time, and that is simply a season change. In real life, depending on where you are, the sun's arc across the sky changes significantly between winter and summer. In the winter it stays closer to the horizon, leading to lower temperatures, whereas in the summer it travels up higher. I think this serves as a solid explanation for the sun's shift in Tears of the Kingdom. We don't know exactly how much time has passed between the two games, but judging from the landscape changes, Zelda's new hairdo, and other factors like the divine beasts being completely gone, it's hinted that there is a significant time jump of at least a few months. So maybe Breath of the Wild took place closer to the winter season and Tears of the Kingdom closer to summer. We can still see what looks like snow higher up on the mountains, which makes sense, given the elevation. But a shift to the summer would explain why the snow at the edge of the plateau, which is closer to ground level, has now receded. The only hole I can find in this explanation is that in this shot, the plateau's wall also looks a bit different, more pristine and undamaged, which is definitely strange. One could say, well, maybe they fixed up the plateau in between games. But if that's the case, for some reason they only did it on this side of the plateau, because on the other side it's still heavily damaged on some spots. But who knows? Maybe the wall just looks different because of the perspective, or because the snow is gone it somehow makes it look unfamiliar, or maybe my whole season shift theory is just completely wrong. That's also possible, of course. At least there is still some hope left for the proponents of time travel. And that wraps it up for today. I will probably do another one of these in the near future because I have plenty more of these types of little discoveries, ideas and theories to share, and not all of them are big enough to devote an entire video to. In fact, the original idea for this video was to feature 10 of them, but as always I end up writing a much longer script than I expected, so I will save the rest for later. I want to keep the content flowing in the next few weeks and shorter videos definitely help with that. Once again, I will save the Patreon and member shoutouts for a bigger video, the Zelda collab to be precise. I did update the end screen as you can see, which I actually did before the direct, but there's still some people missing, particularly the ones who joined during the live stream. So no worries, I will give you all the shout out you deserve, including the people on screen right now. Just give it a few more days. Anyway, that is all for now, and I will see you all next time.